Yeah, this is also coming shortly after Biden's new anti-terrorism initiative. So I'm pulling that up right now on screen for people to see. Let me scroll down over here so people can see this. This is a lot of people retweeted this, including a lot of people in the MCSC network. And people were like, "We told you." Like after what happened with January 6th, we were like, they were classifying people as domestic terrorism, as domestic terrorists. That opens the door for things like this to happen. So here's Ford Fisher. He writes Joe Biden's new anti terrorism initiative classifies anarchist, violent extremists that oppose all forms of capitalism, cooperative globalization, and governing institutions which are perceived as harmful to society as domestic violent extremists. And here is the unclassified
Yeah,
document. So, do you
that
guys see a
sounds like
connection here with this
yeah, that
also?
sounds like some pretty shared beliefs. I mean, and especially Commander X was a very open and a very opinionated, um, took a very opinionated and open stance on all of those things. So, of
Well,
course, he falls within that. Well, and all of us fall within that too. Like, all of our rights are going to be violated. All of asylum is open to be violated now. That's why we say stuff like we are all Assange, because these cases, even though they even these cases, when they target individuals, they really target all of us. That's why we went so hard with we are all Assange, so we
yeah.
don't get, more cases like that, so we don't get the Commander X's or the Mumia Buljamals, who's been in prison, whose prison sentence basically dwarfs that of Commander X and Julian Assange. I hate to say it, but
1986. He's been locked up for 35 years.
So I just look at who
Real quick,
they're.
real quick
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
while we're talking about the countering domestic terrorism strategy, it the narrative is going to be this is the Biden Justice Department cracking down on dangerous white supremacists, which the FBI has said pose the greatest threat to America.
Right.
If you read the document itself, there is absolutely nothing singling out political ideology, right wing, left. No, no. They're going to point at the perceived bad guys, whoever they are in the moment, and then pass sweeping, all encompassing domestic terrorism legislation. But because people are going to be distracted by the whole January 6th narrative, they're going to cheer this on. The amount of applause that you see from the left anytime the state enacts violence on someone that they don't like, it's like their entire ideology goes away
Mm-hmm.
just so they can be like, finally somebody got theirs too.
A lot of it has to
No
do with
dude,
team
vengeance
sports.
based activism doesn't work.
It's because
It
they choose
doesn't.
team sports, right? It's like, oh,
mm-hmm.
they view people on the right or the people who are there at January 6th as people being on the other team, even though the elites, the predator class, they don't see it that way. Like I was showing the document earlier, but just to let people know even further, they have here racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, animal rights, environmental violent extremists, abortion related violent extremists. Like they can, like we were there for Force to Vote, right? In addition to when we were there for Assange, there were more police there than there were on January 6th, weren't there, Steve?
I tell this story, I guess, frequently, and I apologize for that if you've heard it. But yeah, yeah, the difference between standing on the other side of the street from the Capitol, merely the other side of the street, so exact same jurisdiction on Capitol Hill, at the office building, catty corner from the back front side of the Capitol that faces the Washington Monument. From there were 40 of us, maybe, and we were in a horseshoe surrounded by double the amount of cops. There were snatch and grab vans that were parked like at the corners. They had us more or less completely cordoned off for 40 people that were trying to talk to their representatives about something as like minor as forcing a floor vote on the House for legislation that has overwhelming approval. And there were double the amount of cops for that. You go
Yep.
48 hours from that event, and there are now cops nowhere to be seen, especially if you saw in December the amount of cops that were on the Capitol steps. Those cops are nowhere to be seen. And now the ones that are there are letting people in, opening the gate for people, pulling back the fence that was blocking off protesters from getting onto the grounds of the Capitol, opening those gates, opening the door, waving people into the rotunda. That's it. And then we've got Tucker Carlson and Reverb and whatever these other outlets are that are doing decent work just by getting FOIA requests and asking questions about who's been indicted on this. There are a number of people that are unnamed or unlisted co-conspirators. They will never see the inside of a courtroom as a defendant because they've got freaking FBI clearance. We're finding out more and more and more every day now, Franco, what we said when we were there. Crap, this looks like another FBI psyop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was crazy cuckoo bird conspiracy. But here's the other thing: nobody was having any of us that were on the ground there on as like a guest to tell our side of what we saw, because we were only going to say, I can only speak to what I saw. This is what it looked like. I'm working with my colleagues who were at different spots on the ground that day to complete a full picture. Nobody wants to hear that because they just want to hear the narrative that right-wing domestic terrorists pose the greatest threat to this fragile democracy in the history of ever always, and now we've got to cede all of our liberty and all of our rights and all of the things that allow us to, have constitutional protections, freedom of movement, stuff like that, in order to make sure that a 38-year-old skinny idiot with a buffalo horn mask doesn't wander into Nancy Pelosi's office and take a selfie.
Yeah, because it's a narrative that they're most comfortable accepting. Like they're more comfortable accepting that it's another team that is committing a bunch of evil acts and that they're the only problem, not that the elite, the predator class, our government is trying to put us against each other, even though we're all the target.